Three, two, one. Hi, I'm Marty Cohn, and welcome to PR Benefits, a show that explores the role of public relations in the COVID-19 era. I've been a PR practitioner for over 45 years, helping a wide array of organizations successfully communicate their messages to their target audiences. I mistakenly thought that 9/11 would be the watershed event in my lifetime. Communicating in the aftermath of that tragic event was challenging. Then came the global economic downturn in 2008 with more lessons in crisis communication. However, 12 years later, we have the coronavirus pandemic, and new challenges in uncharted waters have emerged. My guest today is Jeff Worden, a former reporter and editor for 2 Pulitzer Prize-winning newspapers and someone who has more than 20 years of experience in public and media relations. His practice, Worden PR in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, focuses on issues management, media training, and crisis communications. Before launching his consultancy, Jeff was the head of public relations for PPG Industries, where he managed financial, employee, executive, and crisis communications for the Fortune 500 manufacturer of paint, glass, fiberglass, and chemicals. In 2005, when Hurricane Rita struck PPG's largest chemical plant, Jeff directed the company's internal and external communications efforts, which won the PRSA Pittsburgh Renaissance Award for crisis communications. Before PPG, Jeff worked 6 years at PNC Bank, where he was a senior speechwriter and manager of publications. Before entering public relations, Jeff was a journalist for 15 years, the last 7 at the Pittsburgh Press. Welcome, Jeff.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm really good. So that introduction is just to prove to everyone, when I say that I'm only talking to seasoned professionals, that proves that you are seasoned.
Thank you, I think.
But one of the things that I find interesting is, how did you get started in public relations?
Well, I sort of found my way. I came through the back door. I was a journalist for a number of years. I really saw myself as a journalist until my dying days. But then I came to Pittsburgh and I had a chance to work in Pittsburgh and really liked working in Pittsburgh. I really didn't want to leave Pittsburgh. So my wife worked in public relations. She said, hey, you should maybe give it a try. So one thing led to another. And long story short, I left the Pittsburgh Press to start work at PNC Bank. And this is at a time when the bank was really growing in an exponential rate. And they wanted me to come on board and create the first all-company newspaper. And up until then, they had purchased all these smaller banks and amalgamated them into one large bank. Right. And they all had their own little newspaper. So my job was to create the first newspaper for the entire bank. And so I was working at that. And I had 60 days to produce the first issue, which is next to nothing in the corporate world. So I was working 20-hour day. I was going to bed with a headache and waking up with the same headache each day. The one day my boss came into the office and she goes, the chairman and CEO would like you to be his speechwriter. I said, Susan, I'm way too busy. Tell them to find somebody else. And of course, at that time, I didn't realize you don't tell the chairman and CEO. No one tells the chairman and CEO no. So she came back the next day and she goes, Tom really likes your writing style. He thinks you ought to be a speechwriter. Susan, I'm telling you, I'm up to my eyeballs. So then the third day she comes back, she goes, Tom will see you in 10 minutes. And from then on, I became a speechwriter. So I spent 6 years being his speechwriter, traveling on the corporate jet sometimes to far-flung locations to give investor presentations, community presentations,
Wow.
testimony in Washington, D.C. and Harrisburg. And really enjoyed that. But I really missed being close to journalism. So I had a chance to go to PPG Industries where I could be the speechwriter there, but I could also be the backup media relations person. Eventually, the person who was in charge of media relations retired. So I had a chance to be in charge of speechwriting and all of media relations, which grew into all of corporate public relations. So I had all the disciplines. But the one I enjoyed the most was crisis communications and issues management. Right. It was the thing that harkened most to my journalistic roots. There's something about that daily buzz you get as a journalist. Once you have that bug, you can't get rid of it. And so I found that crisis and issues management is the closest thing to having that adrenaline rush you get as a journalist.
Wow, that I can definitely relate to that. Um, so so let me ask you though. Okay, I'm kind of dividing things up in terms of life before COVID and life after. But so, what were some of the highlights of your pre-COVID-19 career?
Oh, wow. A couple of my highlights, well, one of which was when I was at PPG Industries, we created a product which was self-cleaning glass. And there was this hydrophobic film put on glass that would actually clean the glass. It would,
Wow.
long story short, there'd be a chemical reaction on the surface of the glass. Dirt is organic, so it would loosen the dirt. So when it would rain, the dirt would go down the window, and self-cleaning. Well, for that chemical reaction to occur, you need UV light, which is outdoor light, correct? So we had invented this product. This wasn't too long after 9/11, and I got a phone call. I would tease the chief scientist, what show would you like to be on? Good Morning America, CBS Evening News. I used to tease her all the time about this. So one night around 5 o'clock, I'm at my desk getting ready to go home when I got a call from a producer at Good Morning America. And she said, hey, we're doing a home improvement segment next week. We'd like to see if you and your product would come on the show. And I'm thinking, okay, this is probably my scientist pranking me. But I thought, well, I can't take that chance. So I said, no, we'd be delighted to be there. No problem at all. We'll see you there. Yeah, we'll make arrangements. So I hung up the phone and I called her, and she said, and she knew nothing about it. She said, no, that was not a prank, Jeff. That must have been real. And long story short, it was real. And so we were asked to bring our technology to Good Morning America and demonstrate it on live TV.
Wow.
Of course, this requires it to be outdoors. This technology is not designed to work indoors because it needs UV light. So we had to find a way to make a product that worked outdoors work indoors. And that was probably the most stressful 3 minutes and 45 seconds of my life.
That is a great story.
But it was cool. It was very cool.
That's definitely one that you should write down. That's really a cool thing. Hey, speaking of writing down, you as a former journalist, do you keep track? Like, I'm actually thinking of sitting down and writing about all these kind of war stories of clients past. Have you ever thought about that?
Well, it's interesting because in my line of work, I have so many confidentiality agreements.
Ah,
I have to be very careful about what I talk about.
right.
So it's interesting because we'll go to dinner or we'll meet some people and all the stories you could tell. And I said, well, I can't tell any of them.
Oh,
I'm often bound by confidentiality agreements. That's correct.
oh, or you
Also, as a practical matter too, because a lot of times my clients are in situations that aren't positive. And they create some sort of pain. They don't want to hear me talk about. They're trying to have less pain, not more.
I got
So
you.
me talking about them only creates more pain. So a lot of my best work, I can't even talk about.
Oh, geez. Well, your whole book would be redacted. You would have these black lines on it. All right. So let's move to now. What are you doing for your clients during this COVID-19 crisis?
Sure. Well, a couple of my clients are in environmental cleanup situations. So they're cleaning up legacy contaminants.
Right.
And of course, what's really very interesting is in many cases, these workers are safer on site than they are in their own home.
Wow.
Because of the personal protective equipment they're required to wear to do this work. Right. In some respects, they're actually safer. In fact, in a lot of manufacturing locations, non-COVID, you're actually safer at work than you are at home, which is why I see a lot of corporations doing a lot of safety programs aimed at home. Mowing your yard, cleaning your gutters. There's all kinds of risks there that we would never allow to occur in corporate America. But long story short, I'm working with my clients because they do have environmental cleanups, and in some cases they have suspended those operations. Not so much. I mean, there is a concern about the spread of the COVID virus in the workplace, but it's the idea that this work is going on where everyone else is not able to work. Everyone else is being asked to stay at home. Right. The last thing my clients want is to put anyone in the hospital that doesn't need to be there, especially at this time. So for a whole lot of reasons, it just doesn't feel right to be doing those kinds of things. And again, they have a very sophisticated model determining when they can go back to work. But right now, that internal review is going on. So this work isn't getting done. And so at a cleanup site, you just don't walk away. It takes quite a bit of work to button it up so it's safe to leave. It's one thing to leave it overnight or over the weekend, but it's another for several weeks or several months. So they have taken those measures to close up those sites, and currently they're looking at the possibility of going back to those sites and what's the criteria for that.
Wow. All right. Well, all right. So, but are you finding, are you communicating more with your clients now? Are they, do you find them looking at, gee, what should we do? Or, has it been
most of my clients are sort of it's a day-to-day situation.
Okay.
Everyone I think thought 2 weeks ago it was 2 months out. Now today it feels like it's maybe a week out. So things are moving just as quickly as we all sort of went into hibernation. I sort of sense that we're just as quickly going to come out, not to what we were before, but to something more normal than what we had before.
Wow.
And so I think it's really amazing. You look at it and you say to yourself, how could we be surprised? I mean, Italy was getting hammered. How did we not realize that was going to happen? I mean, I look back at that and I say to myself, Normandy was just getting creamed. Why we thought it wasn't going to happen here, I don't understand. Right. And, a lot about crisis communications too is some of the best lessons, unfortunately, are learned in crisis.
Right.
And so it's that after action report. And if you look through the history of crisis and issues management, typically we get better each time we go through an event, whether it was 9/11, whether it's Hurricane Katrina, you pick the disaster. It tends to be the model. So what I'm trying to do is trying to anticipate how we're going to change how we conduct ourselves post COVID-19. What's that going to look like? And I think that's where I can provide some of the most value for clients, because a lot of times they're so busy on the treadmill taking care of the day-to-day concerns. They're not looking at a year down the road or 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road. And that's where I think a consultant who has that freedom can provide value.
All right. So, but let me ask you that. Do you think that the role of public relations is going to change? Or what do you think the role of public relations is going to be as we begin this, what you're calling the new normal?
Well, hopefully it is to be sort of this, what it's always been, which is what it always should have been, which is the conscience. Does this seem right? Does this smell right? Does this pass the smell test? And in a lot of cases, one of my biggest challenges with clients as a whole is disclosure. They're absolutely convinced that everyone, and I rarely say this, but that everyone overestimates their ability to keep information secret or non-public. Right. Everyone overestimates their ability to do that. And oftentimes, the problem becomes when it becomes public.
Right.
And so I often work with my clients, let's get on the front end of this. Let's disclose it now. Let's take care of this now. Yeah, it's not going to be any fun, but it's sure a lot better than having, a congressional testimony unearth some information, whether it's an investigative reporter bringing something to light. It's often better. And so, I really think, if anything, I'm hopeful that one of the lessons we learned from this is disclosure. There's the charge that China could have been more transparent. There's a lot of things we could have done so I'm hopeful this ushers in a new era of transparency. And it's my belief that transparency has come a long way in the last 20 or 30 years. And I still think we have a way to go, but I'm hopeful that disclosure and appropriate disclosure and early disclosure is one of the hallmarks of this crisis.
Okay, amen. I think that's a really good hope. All right, well, Jeff Worden PR, thank you so much for coming on the show. Hey, I got to ask one question. Have they opened up the Klondike bar restaurant there? or is it
Well,
still?
I'm not even sure where the Klondikes are manufactured anymore. They're still sold here in Pittsburgh, but I don't know where they're manufactured. They used to be manufactured in Pittsburgh.
Oh,
I'm
gee,
not sure if they
okay, well,
are.
I've just shown you my age, eh?
Well, I saw them in the grocery store a couple of months ago when I was still going to the grocery store, so I know they're still there.
All right, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, thanks so much. And listen, stay healthy.
And same to you.
All right, bye now.
Take care.